This is not a live stream, and I'm here with my dear friend, Tripti, a friend of mine for nearly 20 years at this point. So welcome, Tripti, to Feisworld podcast.
Hi, Faye. I am so glad to be here and sitting and talking to you about our favorite subject, Xiang Li Art and Faye's the World podcast and our friendship.
Our favorite things. First of all, I just wanted people to know like how we met. We met through Sapient. I remember precisely it was shortly after I turned 24. And I was so glad to meet you. I remember we're at the corridor. And then I remember Mike Napoleon introducing you to me. And then you said, I'm really easygoing. And then you started laughing and then you're totally right about that. You did not deliver on an empty promise. So we
Yeah.
got along really well since day one. We worked on a number of projects, some really challenging ones, and kept in touch. And then fast forward nearly 20 years later, we are now working on what I consider one of my life's most important projects, and I will continue to do, and that's Xiang Li Art. And Xiang Li is my mom, and who's been a master artist since, I don't know, since she was 20 years old.
Yeah.
She's 72 now. So I
Right.
really want to just celebrate this conversation, appreciate you once again for celebrating and helping me continue a very important legacy for her, for my family, and beyond. And what you have taught me and helped me realize is that this is a project for all women and to celebrate women's stories. And your enthusiasm and energy have really propelled us forward. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I think, and you mentioned one really important point towards the end about how all of us as women coming together and helping each other and leaning in, right? And celebrating something that all of, for example, at the moment, three of us love appreciating your mom's art. And of course, your mom loves creating the art. So we all
Yeah.
have to stick together and help each other in that way.
Yeah, it's really special meeting you. And I really don't want to overlook the fact that even traditionally, you look at a master artist, looking her intricate techniques and how could we possibly be like her? But I think the world has changed and then shifted to a place where we realize that we need to come together. Art is not about just the artist. It's about the community. It's about people who really appreciate the art. And we're finding different ways. So as part of this conversation, to
Yeah.
tease it out for our listeners, I think we're going to talk about not just our friendship, our relationship between us with my mom, but also the fact that we're building a community around her work, creating these festivals and events and creating something on our own, but also joining other events and festivals and museums and galleries and being part of the cultural coalition and just
Yeah.
like helping artists realize that the world is really out there. Yes, you need some time and attention. That's all true. But
Right.
I love the fact that, for example, one of the biggest things that we should definitely let people know is that you're the reason who helped us set up Etsy, a store. It's something that we've been thinking about it, talking about for years, but it's another thing. But now people can access her art, not just the original art, but extensions of our art in clothing, scarves, home goods, cell phone covers, a lot of art prints and framed artwork. So I'm really excited about that. So maybe we
Yeah.
should dive a little bit on that.
Yeah, we can talk about that. And also, I just wanted to briefly mention that since we got to know each other, whatever, 20 years ago, at one of
Yeah.
our clients at the workplace through Sapient,
Mm.
since then, I have basically known your mom's art, right? I've been introduced to it 20 years ago, and I've been known her art and seen her pieces of work every now and then. And I've always been so fascinated because her art is familiar, like it's familiar to the Asian Chinese style of watercolor painting. But at the same time, I always felt there was something very different, very unique in her art, which was like your mom's unique art, right? That was the reason what kept my fascination going with your mom's art. And when you asked me, well, when I was in this period of taking a career break for the last 3 to 4 years, being a full-time mom, when you asked me if, what we can do together for Xiang Li Art, I was like so excited and pumped up. I'm like, definitely we can do something. And I have a background in design
Yeah.
in the creative field, and I love to write and I love the art. So it was like a perfect combination for me to work on this project.
Yeah, it's a perfect storm. And it's interesting, of course, you're right. This conversation isn't just about platform and revenue and all these tactics, which is something that I think a lot of creators and podcasters would focus on, right? Like you walk away from this conversation, you know what to do with these like 10-step processes. But I think at the end of the day, what I've realized through our collaboration and partnership is that your heart and soul actually matter a lot because
Exactly.
you can find somebody with extraordinary skills on Upwork or Fiverr even, and you hire them for one project for a week or for 3 months. But what I love about this project with you is I know for sure that we can grow together and we can explore different areas, even if it's difficult, right? Even if it's unknown, even if it's changing, like things, as we know, Facebook Business Manager announced April of this year, 2024, that unless the checkout is part of Facebook or Instagram, you can no longer link to the original source of whatever this product is, for example, on Etsy. So we just figure all of these things out through email, text message, meeting up in person. We have the luxury to live only 45 minutes away from each other. And I think that is so essential then rather than focusing only on the technological side of things.
You have to be loving
Mm,
what you want to do. There has to be this natural love and interest.
mm.
Only then things will be more successful when you're working on it. I think that's like a essential truth.
Yeah, it sounds trivial, but it's really not. A lot of people out there today, they're pursuing what gets paid the most, what's easy money, overnight success. As much as we know that we've talked about this, I mentioned this, I think, since day one of this podcast 10 years ago, but still 10 years later, I see those are the things that do sell. But you got to think about it. I think everybody needs to like trip on themselves and really fall really hard to realize, wow, I spent thousands of dollars on these courses, all these promises, and then now I have nothing.
Right.
Rather to like we talk about the long game, and you're someone I can talk about the long game with. And I love the fact that I've just teased it out right now on xiangliart.com/blog. You started a series called Etsy. We call it Etsy Report. For the first
Yes.
time, we've had the shop for maybe 3 months. And in between that, there's a lot of trying to figure it out time, trying to establish new products. And we're very openly, transparently sharing the
Right.
first $10 we made, the first $100 we made. I love that series. And I hope people will check it out and continue to monitor that with us.
Yeah. And actually, talking about Etsy, how we zeroed in on making Etsy our platform, right? A little story behind that. So it was during the COVID time when everything was shut down and all of us were working from home. That's when I realized the inner artist in me. So even though I have a degree in architecture, undergrad and a master's in design and computation and
Yeah.
architecture, I never really sat down and sketched. I
From
always had
MIT.
it in
Didn't you
me.
go to?
Yeah, I my master's is from MIT and undergrad is from New Delhi, India. So even though it was a very creative and design fields, like both my undergrad and master's, I never actually sat down and sketched, even
Mhm.
though but I felt yes, I had it in me, but I never did it until the shutdown of COVID when we were all basically shut down in our homes. And it's amazing how like the period of COVID brought about so many profound changes in people's lives, right? So for me, it was bringing me closer to my inner artist where I actually sat down and started sketching for the first time in my life.
I remember that. You actually
Yeah,
did some oil painting as well. I was following you on
exactly.
Instagram. Yeah.
It was just so amazing for myself to see that, okay, I can create all this art. I never knew I could do this. During that time, during that shutdown, I created lots of paintings, right? And then after a year of COVID, I made some decisions for personal reasons that I wanted to take a career break. I wanted to leave the workforce and be a focused full-time mom. But I was still doing art. So I left the corporate work life, but I was still painting and sketching. And I'm like, I need to do something with it. Like, how do I make this available to rest of the world? Not like financially, but I just wanted people to see what I was creating. I've always been a big fan of Etsy even before COVID. Like whenever I wanted some diversion, something when I wanted to look at some creative ideas, I would go to Etsy and look at what artists have created out there. It was
True.
just fun to browse through Etsy. And even if I didn't want to buy anything, I would just love to be on that app. and see the beautiful creations of various artists. So that was the unique selling point of Etsy to me at
Mhm.
that time. So I decided, okay, let me just do an experiment. Let me put up all my paintings on Etsy and see how they are received, right? So
Yeah.
there were like maybe a total of 10. I hadn't done more than that. And I put it up on Etsy. I got like the Etsy sell app and I figured out all of that on my own. And I put it up for like maybe 3 or 4 months. And I realized that I'm not that level of an artist that I would be able to sell art on Etsy, or rather, there's much more work needed to promote your work on Etsy, to be even noticed, to even get 1 or 2 viewers. So that's
Yeah.
when I realized it wasn't for me, for my art. But when you talked to me about your mom, went back to those days when I
Mhm.
had listed some of my work on Etsy, and I'm like, your mom's work is perfect for a platform
Aw.
like Etsy because she's just got so much of her
Yeah.
work. There's so much that we can put up for people to see. And it's not like just 10 paintings like I had. And it's just so unique. Like your mom's work is so unique and it would get a lot of interest on a platform like Etsy. So it was basically my brief experience with putting up my own works of art on Etsy. That's how I learned about how to
So
start
interesting.
selling on
Yeah, I'm
Etsy. And then seeing your mom's art, which was, I thought, like a perfect media, perfect product
yeah.
to
And
how we came to that decision of
you know,
choosing Etsy.
I didn't even know that you started an Etsy store, but something I learned from just like a brief update, the background and context, I think it's so essential for people to experiment that. The goal is, like you said, is not to make money. It would be
Yeah,
silly. A lot of people is, oh, if I have take nights and weekends away from my family for a couple of weeks, this should result in something, or else I should have done something else. I think that's
right,
very short-sighted.
right.
Knowing that you want to explore something, you number one, you should allow yourself to explore something, and certainly without monetary return. You're learning.
Exactly. Exactly.
You, I think I love the fact that your love for Etsy as a platform, I hope the founder can listen to this, is that you really transformed yourself. It's something that you as a user, you enjoyed. Then you as a creator, you experimented. Now we both know. I don't think it's that, oh, nobody's buying your art. It's number one, not enough views, right? Etsy shop, just like searching on Google. You're not
Yeah,
going to be on the first page. You're not going to be there ever or not for a
right.
long time. And so it doesn't, I just want people to be aware. It's not like you're not a good artist. Nobody appreciates
Yeah.
will ever buy your art. It's like it hasn't really surfaced to the top. Everything takes time and frankly, longer time than it once were when I had 200,000 products versus now probably tens of millions. Oh,
Exactly. Yeah, it was
yeah.
a good learning experience for me. And I think that was, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
It's not like I wanted to sell my art. It
Yeah.
wasn't monetary, like you said. It wasn't the financial motivation at all. It was more about, okay, how do I get to share this with
Mhm.
other people in the world who
Yeah.
are looking for something similar? And it was more of a learning experience that I have to put in that there's much more than just putting your artwork,
Mhm.
uploading it on Etsy. There's much
Very true.
more to it if you want other people to actually see it. And two, you know your limits as well, right? Or which is fine, right? I'm not such a prolific artist like your mom is, but I appreciate art. I love
Yeah.
art. And I also do that because I'm able to sketch a little bit. I can appreciate what great artists like your mom do. So I
Oh.
think it was a really good learning experience, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. That learning experience already translated and transferred to what you have done for Xiang Li Art. So I want to open up the aperture a little bit and
Yeah.
to give people a sense of what we have been doing. And it's so funny. Before this call, I was thinking, what title should I give you? And we talked about a content manager, but you're actually much more than that. So in general, we call you a content manager because you write for our blog. You help us organize, review the materials, whether we're displaying something at the gallery or having our solo exhibit, which you have witnessed multiple times at Worcester Art Museum, at Harvard Museums, and more recently at JMAC. And we have other ongoing shows as well. So I
Right.
do want to talk about you're more like a right hand woman to us, to both mom and me. So I would like to maybe talk about the fact that these days, when I talk to artists and creators, and then myself included, for years, I really struggled to really get exposure to mom's artwork. And I'll explain what that is. And for people who haven't really witnessed her art, I'll briefly mention also, that my mom spent 37 years at the Forbidden City in Beijing, China. She was a master artist. She did a lot of reproduction, restoration work. At the highest level, her work was shipped to Spain, France, and at MFA back in the 1980s, what's called an instead display. So a very important painting for hundreds of years old. You can't just keep opening and keep closing it. It gets
Right.
ruined. So she creates a lot of these official, basically, reproductions. And then even when she was a young artist in her 20s, she knew that her career is going to be a creative one. And she's going to create her own collections, her own work. And
Yeah.
most significantly, the Dreams of the Red Chamber, she did between the age of 25 to 35, 10 years of nights and weekends and
Right.
creating the first collection ever of one of the most prolific Chinese novels. There are four of them,
Yeah.
Dreams of the Red Chamber being one of them. The Art
That's
of
an
War is the
amazing,
other, right?
amazing portfolio of work from
Yeah,
her.
body of work.
Yeah.
It's incredible. She continued most recently, Tripti, you're most aware of the Chinese empresses, which is contains and represents over 200 Chinese empresses throughout Chinese history. Very few women are like quote unquote left out. It's like she's really trying to tell a very holistic story. So that being the background, and I know that piqued your interest as well, is I want to talk about maybe with you, Tripti, some of your this is a two-way conversation here. What was it like for you to go to Xiang Li's art shows, exhibits, and festivals at Harvard museums, Worcester Art Museums, and JMAC? How they're the same or different to you? Like, how did you see the audience interact with their work? Like, for you as somebody who's a participant, as a leader, as a participant, and also as an observer.
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, I saw there was so much enthusiasm in your mom, right? She was so happy to be doing this. Of
That's
course, with
true.
you by her side. That was the first thing that struck me. That and your mom, she speaks in Chinese and she generally interacts with people in Chinese. But despite that, I could see her excitement and enthusiasm in the fact that she's able to showcase her work here in
Yeah,
Boston.
that's true.
Um,
Yeah.
and it was just like, I never saw her, she was doing it like tirelessly, right? Like that whole evening, for example, at the Harvard Museum of Art, I would get tired and I would go and sit in a corner, but your mom was
Me
like so busy talking to
I know.
everyone and
Me
you,
too.
right?
Yeah, we were all
So
exhausted that
I'm sure both of you and Adam were
Yeah.
exhausted, but I know I was going and every few minutes I would go and just sit in a corner and sit and observe. But in general, I think both the events were so successful in terms of drawing people in to
Mhm.
see something different, something that they have not been used to seeing in New England in general. Because
Mhm.
the very first thing that you see is when you enter your mom's exhibition is like these big silk panels. They don't even know
Yeah.
it's silk. They
Yeah,
just
yeah,
see
exactly.
like there's
Everything's
something hanging
Mm.
and there's some paintings on it. So I think like that itself is like a wow factor for people, for viewers who are coming in. And so that kind of draws them in and then they want to explore more. So what is this fabric and what is this painting on the fabric? And like the first exhibition that I saw was the one primarily with dragons, right? Chinese dragons. And one of the pieces there was like this
Yeah, chronological dragon.
chronological evolution of the dragon in Chinese art and how the dragons have been depicted down the centuries. So I think like most people were fascinated to see that. So I think in both the places, generally people were more astonished to see the a different kind of art and the fact that your mom was so excited and was so enthusiastic about talking to all her viewers and engaging with them.
Mm.
So those are my like off the top reflections.
Yeah, I totally echo that. And to see mom at the age of 71, 72, so enthusiastic about
Yeah.
the creation. And honestly, it surprised me too, because on one hand, I know like she's being honest. She's like, at my age, her goal is to contribute to the community. She's not worrying about fortune or fame or anything like that.
Yeah.
I want people to see it. I think something you open my eyes to. For years, people ask me, what is that you want to do with your mom's art? And it was such a difficult question. And I was like, why is this so difficult? I don't understand. Is because most people's MO go-to answer is going to be like fame. I want to be in the museums. I mean, you ask most artists or people who think what artists want It's going to
Yeah.
be being in a museum, permanent display, fame on the art magazine, all those things. And then I realized that my mom has already done a lot of that, even though primarily in China. What is that she wants now? And then my mom being an artist, like she's not really expressive that way to really delve in. And I think when you asked me that question, I realized that we want as many people to see and engage with her art. I didn't
Right.
use the word appreciate. Of course, I want them
Right.
to appreciate it, but also you can't, I feel like art is such a subjective thing that you can't really force people to like something that they don't really necessarily enjoy, what they don't really connect with. What's
Exactly.
what
Yeah.
surprised me is that we talked about the fact that the parallels between Asian or Chinese art to Indian art, and then we talk about the parallels between our different backgrounds. And I see that mommy incorporates so many different animals being the theme, women with these very drapery, like beautiful garments, beautiful headwear, like hair pieces. Women like, I can see myself wearing that. Oh, how do they even put it on? How do they design this? So all the I realize just
Yeah.
like the pandemic that brought us closer, I feel like her artwork has really made us realize we're much more similar, we're much more connected than we thought we were.
Exactly. And I think I mentioned that to you once, and maybe this is for you and your mom too. But one of the other reasons why I feel joy in doing this with you and your mom is that it feeds my soul, right?
Mm.
It's not financial, it's not monetary. But yes, if we do make some money, it'll be great, but it's not what our driver is. It's
Yeah.
really what feeds your soul. It feeds my soul doing this. So,
It's so beautiful that you say this because a lot of people don't unfortunately, some people don't always get to experience that or for a prolonged period of time.
yeah.
People really enjoy when you see people volunteer and to help read, to help people, other people with a disability, they really truly feel the joy. But
Right.
without a system, without a certain integration, it's like a very, it's an event and it's not
Right.
really a process. And what I see with you is this is a whole process we have with Xiang Li Art. At this point, we talk about these things. So I kind of want to open up a little chapter here. A lot of people have the questions of fate. Like everybody, especially people I haven't really seen for months or even years, and we hop on a Zoom call or see each other in person. They go, how did you get your mom's work in these museums?
Right.
And to break it down, I think number one, that to your point, she is quite special. She's very talented. But subjectively, again, I've entered her work into local competitions where that she's never won for years. Like nobody ever really, no, nobody. Generally, they pick certain work. You look at it as this is first place. This is, and then
Yeah.
everybody's they got, as an artist or as an observer, it's hard, right? You
Right.
go, wow, this person just started learning and the mom's done something so intricate. So you never know who's going to win, where's they going to
Exactly.
place you.
Yeah.
But long story short, what I have learned in the past, particularly since I not just met you, but since we started pursuing this, we keep each other posted. You send me links. Faye, this might be for your mom. For example, Etsy recently launched and released a competition as simple as tell us about yourselves, your favorite product, and we're going to enter you into this contest. And then at the same time, I notice what's been helping me is trying to establish personal connections, meaning me physically walk into a gallery, a museum, or local art
Yeah.
venues with mom or sometimes by myself and just have a conversation for
Right.
people to see. I feel like that is so essential because you could follow 1,000 Instagram accounts and people never met you. They won't
Right.
remember you or know why your art is special.
Yeah.
But secondarily, Tripti, lately I've noticed that then after the personal context, I do start following local art, cultural coalitions, councils, and then to see what they're doing. And then, of course, you and I both realize there's like almost infinite amount of or like art festivals, things that are
I
actually going on. And it is
know.
like now it's overwhelming. There's too many things to apply to that we don't have time for it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Although, like the way you have been, like since the beginning of this year, the way you and your mom have been following up on getting these physical exhibitions planned and going, that is tremendous. That's amazing how you've been in a short period of time. Like we
Yeah.
started working together in January, and I already see you've got 4 or 5
Yeah.
physical exhibitions planned. 3 we've already had, and I suppose we have 2 or 3 more coming up
Yeah.
through the end of the year. I think it would benefit your mom's followers and viewers a lot if you were to talk about how to go about doing that, right? How to
Yeah.
get all these exhibitions planned and how to get
Mhm.
them booked, first of all,
Yeah.
and how to plan them.
For sure. I feel like as a content manager, one thing that I owe you, which I'll continue to work on this week and next, is start putting together very concrete steps and things, lessons that we learned. And frankly, I want to encourage anybody who run small or large or solo or group exhibitions to really write down and capture as many lessons as they have learned, because those lessons will fleet and you literally forget them pretty quickly.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Right. One thing I want to give a shout out to JMac, for example, most recently here in Worcester. Worcester, Massachusetts is this kind of has been up and coming, but now it's like a flourishing place for creators, for young people, for artists. And I discovered that it's crazy. This is how it happened. We had a couple of friends, our dear friends, visiting us from New York. And I was trying to find something to do in Worcester. They're staying with us for a week. And I got this email from JMac to say there's a little show. Like teenagers putting on a theater show. I said, what the heck? Let's just go check it out. And as we were going through the theater, which we loved, I immediately noticed JMac, which is the place mom had her most recent solo exhibit. There were artwork on the wall by young artists. I just love the layout. And I was like, what the heck? Let's bring mom
Right.
here. Mom
Right.
saw the space. She loved it. And
Mm.
now, luckily, I was grabbing all these cards, right? Like at the venue. I realized it's part of the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and they had a grant to support artists as opposed to paying thousands of dollars for this big area. By the way, it's 90 feet of wall space on one side and nearly another 50, 45, 50 on the other side.
Yeah.
And then instead of paying thousands of dollars, we
Yeah.
could basically use the space for free if we follow some of their guidelines. The wall, by the way, is treated as professional with the star hanging system and everything. And then that's how we did it. Now, I would say, right, Tripti, like the one thing I realized that when I fill out forms, not just for JMac, but also for other venues, they tend to run pretty long. They tend to
Yeah.
be a little bit confusing, to be honest, including language such as any insurance or other things that you need to know as an artist, which are particularly areas that many artists do not want to engage in. I know my mom doesn't like marketing, doesn't
Yeah.
like to read paperwork, that I had to go through all of that. And then it was 2, 3 months after the submission that I actually heard back. At that point, frankly, I almost forgot about it. It's like, this came through. I think it's part of this really is about time management, getting yourself out there, time management, applying, but also I love the fact that you and I both were project managers. And
Yeah.
one thing we didn't think we had to, but now we start doing something, which is listing literally first, last name, name of the organization. And I would encourage anybody to use an Excel spreadsheet or Google spreadsheet to say all of that. And then, the status of your application.
Right.
Submitted, usually followed by accepted or
Yeah.
rejected. And then
Same.
if something is accepted, it's crazy, Tripti. I didn't know how complicated this was. Once it's accepted, there's a art drop-off date, there's an art pickup date, and in the event of a solo exhibit, a lot of times you have to do the installation, so there's an installation window as well. And
Okay.
then sometimes if you have that, there's usually an opening reception.
Yeah.
There's like
Right.
different
Right.
milestones.
Lot of work. It's almost like managing a program,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
a
exactly.
project, but like a program.
And then what I realized exactly in each show, whether it's
Yeah.
group or solo, gallery or museum, each show, it's like a project that has
Yeah.
different requirements. You're dealing with different clients.
Exactly.
So much of what we do, I feel like truthfully, your background, my background as a producer has significantly helped this whole
Exactly.
process. Yeah.
Absolutely. Our background in project and program management in the corporate world definitely helps in what we are doing today for
Yeah.
Xiang Li Art. Yeah,
Yeah. And
definitely.
then on top of
It's
that,
more structured.
yeah.
Doing art and design, managing art and design work, but in a structured way.
Very true, and I love how much flexibility we've invited into these projects, right? You can't just stand by this spreadsheet, it has to go that way, or how come you said this? And right there, it's very unstructured. And I
Yeah,
think by applying some structure to in a very
exactly.
unstructured environment has been really
Yeah,
helpful. Now, I want to really take a moment to say, on one hand, I'm able to do this because you are taking care of everything else. Managing Etsy, setting up products, but also one area I really want to make sure we have some time to discuss is the writing piece, the blogging piece, that for me for years is the hardest area to find people to do. They have
Yeah.
to be interested. They need to know how to write, make it conversational. In our case, we're not trying to look for a scholarly paper
Right.
or any
Right.
kind.
Yeah.
So you've done such a great job. So could you maybe talk about the writing piece? What inspires you to write? What do you write
Sure.
about? And like, how do you go about completing a piece, whether it's short or long, as opposed to, oh, let me go get coffee. Oh, Faye, I can't really finish this. I'm just so distracted. You're a busy mom of 2 kids too.
Actually, being a busy mom with that as background and context, right, doing blog writing is like the best. It's like the best vocation anyone can have. I
Why
can
is
tell you
that? I
that.
love it.
Uh, Seriously, because there's so much you can get so much. It needs a lot of flexibility writing blog posts. So I always loved writing essays as I was growing up. I loved to write, and I would write for my school magazine, and I love writing essays and stuff. But it was hard for me to define how to make a career out of it, so I never did that. And then,
Look at you now.
yeah, look at me now. So never forget your childhood interests and hobbies. You never know how they may start helping you at the point where you are at in life, right?
Very
So,
true.
anyways, I always love to write, and I love art. Like I mentioned, I love art, and then I love your mom's art, and then so this was like a perfect. This was a perfect combination. I've also a lot of times. So when I was in architecture school, we also had an elective called art appreciation. So I know there was a teacher who would teach us how to appreciate art. At that time, I was whatever 2021, and I don't remember much of what we did, but I think the idea of art appreciation is ingrained in me, and I've always wanted to go back and I do that a lot online in my free time, go back and look at some of the classical pieces of art and try to understand what what the artist had in mind, and understand the story behind a famous piece of art, right? So I always had a little bit of that as well. So you can see where I'm coming from in terms of writing for your mom. So I have an interest in writing. I like art appreciation. I've always dabbled with that a little bit, trying to educate myself in the famous pieces of works of art online. And then your mom's art, the thing is that it's truly inspirational for me personally. So I see what inspires me. I take one point in your mom's any piece of work and I see what is really truly inspiring me and then just write about that.
Yeah.
And then the ideas just flow. The research just follows. Like the research I did a little bit for Empress Dowager Sichi's portrait in
Yeah.
Harvard Art Museum.
Even went to the museum to look at one
Went
of
to the
the
museum. So
original.
it's not like naturally drives me. So I would say you have to be inspired first, then the writing will automatically follow because then you would want to write for whatever is inspiring you in that piece of art. And you would do the required research as well. So I think it all starts with what is fascinating you or what is inspiring you. And then you would follow up with writing about it, doing some research about it.
Yeah, for
Um,
example. Yeah, I want because your writing is so memorable, I read them, but I find them also inspiring because you observe and see things that I don't, not that I'm numb to, but it's like I see them all the time. I'm surrounded by mom's art since I was a little kid.
yeah,
And there are things that she does that I no longer notice
right,
with sharp eyes like yours. So one of the articles, one of the first ones you wrote is about these creatures. And you're like, what is going
so
on with all the
creative.
creatures? Are
Yeah,
they all birds? Oh, they're birds and phoenix. Okay, what is this? Oh, this is a lion. That's a baby lion, which we have a separate name
right.
for, and a baby dragon. And they're unicorns. It just, I can look every corner. And then so you wrote an article about that and you helped me learn things that I didn't know about these
Right.
creatures. So you see, like when you're coming from that culture, like for me, not that I'm entitled, but I feel not only I'm Chinese, but I'm my mom's daughter and I've been ingrained in her work. So I stopped questioning. I don't really
Right.
question as much. I was like, oh, that's just, yeah, that's part of those
Yeah.
Chinese elements. And you notice
Yeah.
things like, how come on these empresses wear different clothing than the
Yeah.
maids or than the other
Right.
women in this painting?
Right.
What do they mean? Like, what are these patterns? Why are these clouds painted this way? Those are really
Yeah.
interesting. And then, yeah, and then also as so many people, thousands of people have traveled through JMAC, and the people we're lucky to meet in person ask even more questions about things that
Right.
my mom didn't remember that she painted her paintings. It's like kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you make a really good point. Like for other artists who may be watching your show and if they're thinking about getting some blog posts up and getting a writer for writing their blog posts on their art. I think it's really important to get someone from outside
Yeah, yeah.
your like your immediate family network, for
Mhm.
example, like between you and your mom. Like you said, it's
Yeah.
become like every day, like a thing that you stop noticing because it's like you see something, you see her art every day. So you stop noticing that each piece of her artwork has an animal in her
Mhm.
painting, right?
Yeah,
But it's someone who is outside
yeah.
of your immediate circle will be able to notice some of these things. So getting a fresh set of eyes on your work will help a lot in bringing out certain features of your paintings that you have stopped noticing.
Yeah,
No?
exactly. Like my dear friend Michael Lecky's wife, whose name is Molly Lecky, and I started a conversation about her art, and I started noticing things almost immediately about her origin, her
Right.
paintings of nature and nature that are not necessarily in these popular places, but paths that she has walked, she has noticed these kind of mundane things that are so easily getting
Right.
overlooked. So I totally agree with you, getting a fresh set of eyes. And I want to also respect your time, Tripti, because you're a caregiver. You have a lot going on. So I wonder, in terms of productivity and time management, right? A lot of the times we hear people say that even people without children or without even not going through a serious illness, I know there's a lot happening in this world today, going through anxiety. One of the benefits I have felt working with you is that I think there's so many of these things. A lot of those are quite negative these days in the world. And then this work with you protected me and shield me and us into thinking something not just positive, but creating something that's positive, that's really
Yeah.
nurturing to ourselves, but also to the world and to the people around us. And that's something I really want to continue to do. One of the projects, I'll just tease it out this summer, is I want to use my voice, the stories of these empresses, the stories of other like very more meditation themed content. My voice, not AI voice, and with music, and kind of start sharing stories and maybe start a new YouTube channel. And that's how I feel inspired to cross pollinate and kind of bridge these things together. But I do want to go back to you and say, how are you seeing yourself to be able to find time to do this? And like something more tactical, you're driving your two boys, you're
Right.
chauffeuring them. I know
Yeah.
you're taking care of your mom as well. So
Yeah.
how do you encourage other people, busy parents, busy moms who maybe find pockets of time to pursue something that truly love and enjoy, that clearly you found nurturing to you? How could other people do something like
Yeah.
this?
Good question. So first thing, so yeah, I have my hands full with my two boys and my mom who lives with me. I take care of, and she also takes care of me. So it's both ways. It does engage me quite a bit. But one thing definitely is that as the boys grow older, you'll find more pockets of time. I can
Yeah.
assure you that, right?
Yeah.
However, you still are busy most of the day with just coordinating activities
Yeah.
for your children. So my older one's in high school and my younger one is graduating from middle school, will be graduating this year. So even though they are pretty much independent, you still have to do all the coordination. You have to like keep an eye on them, stay on top of their academics, make sure they are doing all the right things at the right time.
Yeah.
But it's literally the pockets of time that you get that you start applying yourself to writing, or even things like what we do with Etsy for your mom's work. And with writing, I would definitely say the way I approach it is it's not something that you can just do it in one sitting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I might be cooking, but then some ideas strike me about a certain piece of your mom's work that I'm going to write. So
Mm.
I it strikes me and I'm like, I should go write it down. So I just put the points down. I jot them down as they come to me.
Yeah.
And I'll do that for almost 3, 4 days. I won't actually sit down and write a formal piece of article, but
Yeah.
I'll only be jotting down points that strike me as I'm doing something else, folding clothes or cooking or driving my kids to the basketball. And then one fine evening or night after everybody's gone to bed, I sit down and actually start writing. And
Mm.
then I write the different, I go through like at least 3 or 4 drafts. before I finalize and I share it with you. Both of us look at it and we say, oh, yeah, we can post it. So I would say it's a process, not,
Yeah.
it doesn't happen in one sitting. And it's something that you mull over, that you think over through a period of time, like a week, I would say. And then you put it all together.
Yeah.
And
No,
that's
that's
like,
super helpful.
yeah, yeah,
It's very different, right? You mentioned being a busy mom. There are a lot of interruptions throughout the day. So for people who are listening to this, don't judge yourself. Like it takes a week, it takes 3 to 4 days. Let it
right,
be. Like you're not failing yourself or anybody else. Like I highly encourage people to do this. Now, for people like me who sometimes do find these 2 hour block, which is totally rare
right,
for a lot of people, that I might be able to finish something, that's okay as well. I think depending on the pieces that you're writing, sometimes some days you're just so inspired. You're like writing like crazy. The words just like oozing out of your keyboards or whatever. And then you
right,
just get a lot done. It's one of those days. But for the slow days, don't let the slow days really speak to you in terms of this is not for me, this is not
exactly.
working.
Yeah,
Like I love clearly you and I, Tripti, you and I are supporting each other. We have a good support system. Like we are there texting each other like just with
right,
joy, right? It doesn't feel like work at all. Like we email each
exactly.
other, we text each other. And for people who have to go solo and do this on your own, a lot of people do have to start a lot of things on their own without much support, unfortunately. And then just be careful like how you talk to yourselves and make sure you want to be that supporting partner. When you talk to yourself, it should be positive, should be forgiving, should be nurturing. Yeah, I just want to I really
Exactly.
call that out.
It's not so writing is like art in a way, right? It's something, it's not completely, it's not scientific, right? Like you plan your experiment. It's not like that, right? And we've all heard about the writer's block. So you may have the writer's block for like days on end until something strikes you and you feel like putting the pen to paper and actually writing. So yeah,
Yeah.
just treat it as art, but treat it as something that, and treat it as something that gives you joy. And the words will flow when the timing is right, when you have all the right ideas in your mind.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Tripti, I know that I'm taking up some of your time. And if you do some extra time, what are your thoughts on things that you really want to cover that we haven't talked about? I do want to let our listeners know this is something because the project's ongoing is so precious. I want to do this on a quarterly basis, right? We're right now in, I don't know, Q3 approximately. We want to do this again between October and December. Just let people know, just to check in to see where we're doing, what we're even struggling with, just to be very
Yeah.
transparent. But yeah, anything
No,
art-wise?
I think one of the things we can talk about next time is something that you brought up right in the beginning of this call, the conversation blog post piece that we have just started about our Etsy performance,
Yeah.
where we are at after 6 months. I think we just published the first blog post about that, about how we are doing so far. And what are some of our lessons learned? And then we'll publish it every quarter in terms of what our performance has been on Etsy. So I think that would be really important for us to share. And we are being completely transparent about what we've learned so far, what's working, what's not working. And I think that would be really beneficial for artists in general who are interested in publishing on Etsy, or for that matter, any other commercial portal for their art.
Yeah.
I think we can talk about that as we go along.
For sure. Absolutely. And I also love the idea of being like having a quarterly report. I think right now we're trying to be a little more ambitious to be monthly. And sometimes, like, especially there's certain periods of the business that transforms very quickly. There are new
Yeah.
momentums every month. Sometimes it is more on the quarterly basis. So we'll keep monitoring that. And for people who are still with us listening at this point, and I've included in the description below wherever you're consuming this media, the basically link to my mom's artwork is xiangliart.com. That is xiangliart.com. And her Etsy store is also by the same name, Xiang Li Art. So is her Instagram. So we're trying to keep everything consistent. And she's also on LinkedIn. And if you have any thoughts or questions, you can email us at xiangliart@gmail.com. And Tripti and I both have access to that email account. Yeah, just I love this conversation. I feel like we don't have enough of these conversations, right? Every week, we love the status updates. We check things
Right.
off the list, but it's so essential and important to reflect on our journey together on a quarterly basis.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, that's been one of the most rewarding sort of lessons learned exercise that we realized like last week when we
Yeah.
put it together. Yeah.
So cool, so cool. And also, I hope people will listen to this and realize that this is something that you're doing now and you're open to working with other talented artists. And
Yeah.
as long as that their genre, their message resonate with what you're trying to create. That's certainly not every artist, every creator out there, but I hope people will reach out to you and reach out to us and maybe together or separately, we can also help other creators and realize, push their art forward. So with that said, I'm going to conclude today's recording and hope to hear from
Thank you
other
for
people.
having me and talking to me about something that I love to do these days.
Absolutely. My pleasure.